Experienced musicians almost always carry a spare guitar cable or a mic cable because we know that cables can fail. This one right here, for example, this is a guitar cable that evidently was attacked by a dingo. Well, or a puppy. It chewed right through the end of it. Usually what happens is cables get flexed near the ends and we get broken connections right near the ends. That can happen too. Things can get broken in the middle. The good news is that cables are usually pretty easy to repair. And if they're broken close to the end and there's still plenty of good cable remaining, it makes sense just to chop out that last few inches of bad cable and move the connector over and make it, once again, good as new. I've fixed plenty of cables for my friends because they were more comfortable holding a guitar than a soldering iron. And if that's the situation that you're in, well, you can certainly pursue that as well, and you can send me your cable and I'll fix it for you. But it's probably more convenient and more cost effective to do it yourself. And so I invite you to hang out with me for a few minutes here while we tear into this cable, and I'll show you how I go about replacing that end and fixing the cable and making it once again good as new. Hey, before we begin, if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. If you're into this kind of content and you haven't yet subscribed, please take a quick second and reach down and click that subscribe button, and be sure to hit that bell icon so that you're notified when new content drops and you don't miss anything good. These actions help the channel grow, and I appreciate your support. Okay, let's get started here with this bad cable. So this here is the end of the cable that is chopped off. And if you're not sure which end of the cable has got the problem, you can probably just open up the connector. And when you do that, you'll see that center conductor is, in many cases, broken off, which would indicate that that's where the problem lies. Of course, in this case, the cable's broken here, but we need to remove this connector so we can reattach it onto the good part of the cable. So I'm going to pull that cover off, pull this little bit of insulation out of there, and I need to remove this wire off of the connector. Just to make life a little easier, I'm going to chop this off a little shorter, like so, and we'll discard that piece. I want to remove this bit of heat shrinkable tubing. The purpose of the heat shrink tubing here is just to provide a strain relief so we don't flex the cable so much and it makes it more reliable. And so I'm not too concerned about damaging anything on this one little chunk of cable here, so I'm just going to try to do a little cut there and see if we can get this stuff out of our way. So we'll just chop that out and get that heat shrink tubing out of our way. Take my soldering iron, which is hot, and I'll just wipe off that tip a little bit so it's nice and clean. I'm going to apply just a tiny amount of solder onto the tip so that I get good thermal conductivity, and we'll hold him on here for a moment and that'll take him right off. Okay, so let's attach the wire that we just stripped back and put a little bit of solder on those connectors. If you can see them, I assume you can. And we're going to attach that onto the plug. Now before we do that, we need to dress this cable out a little bit. I'm going to put him here for a second, and I'm going to grab some heat shrinkable tubing to do that strain relief business like the other one had. Just grab a little bit of heat shrink tubing, like so. Cut that nice and square. And we'll slip this over the wire. Like so. And then we need to put the connector cover on it and the little bit of insulation that was there. And we'll just push all this back a little ways to get them out of our way, like so. Now, this connector has some solder on its terminals already, and this wire has some solder on it, so when I just heat these up, they'll just mate right together real easily. This ground wire, the shield, is a little bit longer than I need, so I'm going to trim him back just a little bit. Something like that, I'd say. And to make life easier, I'm going to put that into the holder so it'll hold it for us. And I need to just get these guys to solder back together. I'm going to put that center wire just into the hole here, like so. We'll get the soldering iron going on. Apply a little bit of heat. And you may need to add a little bit of solder, but I think that we're doing okay with that. And then for the bottom side here, I want to make sure that we got a decent mechanical connection between that shield wire and the shield on the connector. So we'll just get ourselves in there and put a little solder on him. Solder's going to flow toward the heat a bit. Make sure the heat's nice. It cools pretty rapidly, just takes a few seconds. I think we're connected. Wipe off the iron, like so. And I'll take a quick look at this. Looks pretty decent. Maybe I can trim that excess there just a little bit. And you'll see that we have a nice connection going on. The solder connection should look shiny and not dull. The dull connections would indicate a cold solder joint, like you didn't get enough heat on it. But this looks pretty promising to me. Okay, we've slid the heat shrink tubing up onto the wire going in here, and a heat gun works best, but since I have a Bic lighter handy, I'll just hold this over the heat for a moment. Doesn't take too much. And we'll just get that shrinkable tubing to shrink and get nice and tight on there, like so. Beautiful. And then we can slide our clear insulator that was with this connector back onto place and put the cover back onto place. Like so. And now we have a connector on the good end of the cable. Let's see if the cable works. So now let's check continuity on our cable to make sure that our repair was successful. Grab some meter leads here. plug them in. I'll put the ohm meter over to continuity check mode, or ohms. That works. And so if I go to the shield of this one to the shield of the other one and get continuity, I do not get continuity between the shield and the tip, which is good. And of course the other way is same as well. And tip to tip is good. So tip to tip is good, shield to shield is good, and not in between. So it looks like we have successfully cured that cable.